This is a huge recruiting weekend for Longhorn football. Who's coming to town? We've got a list, and it includes some big names. Up next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Steve Sarkisian and the Texas staff will welcome several of its top targets for the classes of 2026 and 27, starting today, Thursday, and running through this Saturday. This is the first significant visit day since the Longhorns hosted Junior Day back on January 25th. Again, more than 2 months ago. Steve Sarkisian actually missed that Junior Day event because he was sick at the time. He is healthy, so it is all systems go. And again, some big time visitors here in Austin, Texas this weekend. We've got 4 big names that you need to know who will be in town. Any of these 4 would be huge recruiting additions for Texas. Obviously, we're still 8.5 months away from early National Signing Day, but some big names to keep an eye out for. We'll see if the Longhorns can garner some momentum on any of these recruits this week. We're going to start with the running back. The 5-star running back, Xavier Crowell from the state of Alabama. That's a name a lot of you know because he's been in the Texas news cycle a lot over the last few weeks. When Tashard Choice left Austin to become the running backs coach for the Detroit Lions, Crowell canceled his official visit. He was supposed to come in early June. He quickly canceled that OV, and he tweeted about it as well. Texas fans started freaking out like, oh my God, we just lost Tashard Choice. Now we're going to lose out on the chance to land one of the top tailbacks in the country. Well, the good news, new running backs coach Chad Scott came in and quickly smoothed over any concerns that the Alabama native had. Scott got the OV back onto the calendar, and how about a 2-day unofficial visit this weekend for Crowell? This is one of, if not the top backfield target for the Longhorns in the class of 2026. The other name is KJ Edwards, who's from the state of Texas, but Crowell, a big time name. He's 5'11", 205 pounds, was originally a part of the 2027 class, reclassified to 26, still listed as one of the top tailbacks in this class, despite basically skipping a grade. Obviously, the Longhorns have some stiff competition. Crowell being from the state of Alabama, you know you're going to have to recruit against the Crimson Tide. It won't be easy, but seeing what Texas did going into Georgia, getting Justice Terry out of that state, gives you some confidence that maybe the Longhorns can go into SEC territory and poach another kid from SEC country. It's huge to get him on campus right now. Again, the official visit's still on track in June, so 2 visits for Crowell over the next 3 months. Massive for the Longhorns' chances to bring in, again, one of the top running backs in the country in this upcoming class. So huge. He will be here for the next couple of days. Another 5-star, another reclass, Richard Wesley, an edge rusher, the 3rd-ranked edge and the 20th overall player. That was originally in the class of 2027. Those numbers are likely to change because, again, of the reclassification. But the Longhorns have a shot in this recruitment. Now, Wesley has offers from everyone and their mother, right? USC, Georgia, Penn State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Ole Miss. All of those schools have been linked to Richard Wesley. So this is not going to be an easy recruitment for the Longhorns to win at all. But again, good news. The fact that you're getting him here on an unofficial visit means that there's at least some interest there. And this will be a test, kind of the first big recruiting test for new Texas edge coach Alan Clark, who, of course, was hired away from Ohio State a few weeks after the conclusion of the college football playoff. He was an assistant D-line coach for the Buckeyes, now an assistant defensive line coach for the Longhorns. He's going to be working more specifically with the edges because of his role He can't travel to do any recruiting, but when the players travel to him, he can obviously do his part in recruiting. Alan Clark worked with a bunch of talented cats at Ohio State with JTT and Jack Sawyer and Tyleek Williams, just to name a few. He's also worked with some NFL guys as well. He's a big name. That was a big-time poach from Texas in the offseason. And this, again, will be sort of his first on-campus recruiting opportunity. We'll see how it works with the West Coast standout, Richard Wesley. Again, more than 24 offers right now from big-time programs all across the country. Getting him in Austin, big time. We'll see what happens there. Another reclass. Yeah, notice a theme here. Mark Bowman, a tight end. It's going to be an interesting year for the Longhorns at tight end, right? You have lost Jatavion Sanders and Gunnar Helm over the last couple of seasons, to the best tight ends in the country in 2023 and 2024. That position sort of a question mark for this year. Obviously, Mark Bowman, not a guy who can come out and help the Horns this fall, but another guy who reclassified from 27 to 26. How good is he? Well, he is still regarded as the number one tight end in America, according to 24/7 Sports, despite skipping a grade. Usually you see a guy reclass, it drops him down the rankings a little bit. Understandable. He's a year younger, going against guys who are, well, a year older. Mark Bowman, so highly regarded. I mean, this is a kid who has drawn Brock Bowers comparisons. Yeah, Brock Bowers. That Brock Bowers, the guy who just set a bunch of tight end rookie records in the NFL for the Vegas Raiders this past season, a guy who dominated college football and was a part of a couple of national championship winning teams for the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, if you're 80% of that guy, you're doing something right. Mark Bowman, 6'4", 225. I've read a few different reports about him. No weakness in his game, just a big body target who can move, who has soft hands. Another West Coast guy. And the Longhorns have and will continue to be a major player in his recruitment, despite the reclass. And the good news is he's from Mater Dei High School. The Longhorns currently have two Mater Dei Monarchs on the roster. One of them is tight end Spencer Shannon, who might be the number one tight end for the Horns this coming season. Brandon Baker, the five-star offensive lineman, also a Mater Dei alumnus as well. So Steve Sarkisian, a West Coast guy, tons of ties over there. He's recruited well in Southern California, and he's recruited well at Mater Dei High School, where Mark Bowman is a student right now, about to enter into his final year of high school football. Maybe you get, obviously the coaches are going to be recruiting Mark Bowman, but to have Spencer Shannon and Brandon Baker helping out, that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. So Mark Bowman here this weekend has an official visit set June 6th through the 8th this summer. Also has OVs planned for Bama, Georgia, USC, and Oregon. Yeah, some big names. Again, another recruitment that won't be easy, but I think Texas is in a good spot with him. And then last but not least, why not end with another reclass? Ethan, a.k.a. Booby Feaster, the four-star receiver from DeSoto. Been in contact with Texas for a while. This guy's been in contact with everybody for a while. You know, sometimes high-level recruits will have an offer or two when they get to high school. Like, they're so good and they're such freak athletes that somebody will reach out in middle school and offer them. Booby Feaster showed up to high school with 26 scholarship offers, and he's now up to 50 total. So this dude, again, he's been in contact with Chris Jackson for a few years. He's also been in contact with dozens of other colleges as well. But he's a DFW kid, of course, at DeSoto, and just a stud, a track star, ridiculous speed, 6 feet, 175. He's taken unofficial visits to Alabama, LSU, and A&M in the last month. I think he's taken another trip to A&M as well, but he will be here on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, either tomorrow or Saturday, sometime this weekend for sure. He also has an unofficial visit planned for Oregon in April. So, again, this guy has been a hot commodity for a number of schools for a number of years. But a Texas kid, the Longhorns have had some success recruiting DeSoto High School. Quintravion Wisner, a DeSoto guy. Jonte Cook, a DeSoto guy. Hesitant to bring him up, but still, Texas won that recruitment, got him on campus. Unfortunately, things didn't work out, but maybe the Horns have a nice little pipeline going with DeSoto High School. Maybe Booby Feaster can be next in line. Yeah, DFW talent who has been raved about for a long time. So there's 4 big names right there, all reclassifiers, but all guys who are so good that they can skip a grade and still be regarded as some of the top players in this recruiting cycle. Hopefully the Longhorns can make some hay with all four of these guys. Again, you'll take any of them, but if you're able to get 2, 3, or obviously all four, then that could go a long way into Texas wrapping up another number one recruiting class in America. All right, there's the future of Texas football. What about the current for the Texas Longhorns? We're only a couple of days into spring practice, but a few freshmen are already standing out. We'll talk about some early enrollees making an early impact up next, right here on Locked on Longhorns. But first, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and sports tickets and concerts and other entertainment, it's easy to lose track of all of your finances. That's where our friends at Monarch Money come in. They are your personal CFO, giving you full control and visibility over all of your finances. This is not just a budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center. So you can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place. So you could stop just trying to manage your money, but you could start actually building wealth. It's so convenient. You don't need multiple apps anymore. You have that finance folder on your phone. Nah, you can get rid of that. Just get Monarch Money. They've got you covered. Everything you need from your short-term budget to your long-term goals. It's all right there in one place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get 50% off your first year. Again, head over to the website, monarchmoney.com, and use that promo code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com. Welcome back to Locked on Longhorns, your team every day. We're only 2 practices into the spring, but a few freshmen from the Longhorns' top-ranked recruiting class are already making an impact. We've got 4. That's the theme of the day, 4 downs in football. Top 4 list. We got you covered here. 4 early enrollees that have been making a big name for themselves through these first few days. We'll start with cornerback Cade Phillips, the 5-star from Fort Bend Hightower out of the Houston area. According to a source, these are insider reports that we're bringing you here on Locked on Longhorns. According to a source, Cade Phillips is showing some elite signs just 2 practices in, not just his length and makeup speed, but some intangibles as well. I know it's early, but Texas may have caught, quote, lightning in a bottle. He's been that impressive in the same way that Ryan Wingo was a year ago at this time, end quote. Whoa. How about that? Ryan Wingo comparisons. I know they play different positions on opposite sides of the ball, but everybody was talking about Ryan Wingo before he got to campus, but especially once spring practice started and all of the coaches and all the media got to take a look at the kid for the first time. It was like, damn, this guy is different. Like, there's elite recruits, and then you could just tell, like, oh, this guy is going to make an impact right away. He doesn't look like a freshman. He looks like he's been playing college ball for a couple of years, and he could step on the field tomorrow and hang with the best of the best in this sport. Sounds like that's what Cade Phillips is looking like early on. 6'1", 185, again, from the Houston area, a 5-star corner, one of the 5 5-stars that Texas brought in. And you look at the cornerback depth chart for Texas right now. Obviously, Jahdae Barron is off to the NFL. He was your number 1 CB last year. You've got Manny Muhammad back. You assume he's going to have one of those corner spots locked down. And then Jalen Gilbo, who's switching positions, trying to do what Jahdae Barron did, going from star to outside corner. Jalen Gilbo's there as well, but there could be some early opportunities for PT for Cade Phillips if he continues to look the way that he's looked through a couple of practices. Now, still 13 more of these to go. Obviously, fall camp as well, but no Jahdae Barron. Obviously, Gavin Holmes is done as well. So some opportunities for Cade Phillips here to really showcase his abilities in the spring. And it sounds like he's doing that. He's long. Again, anytime you get a corner that's 6'1" or taller, that's a great thing. He's got elite speed, high school track star as well. Apparently the intangibles are there. I'm excited with Cade Phillips, and that might be a guy who, again, like Ryan Wingo did in 2024, can get on the field pretty early in his freshman campaign. Number 2 on the list, Nick Brooks, The offensive tackle from the Atlanta area. We talked about him a little bit yesterday. 6'7", 353. Now, I'll be honest. I hear that a guy is 353 pounds. I'm like, all right, he's got to shed a few LBs, right? He's a bit out of shape. No worries. Torrey Becton will get him in, and he'll get his body right, and no problems there. Apparently, Nick Brooks looks great. It's not like, he's a fat 353. I don't know how you cannot be a fat 353, but Nick Brooks doesn't look like he has a bad pound on him. He's been working with the second string offensive line at left tackle behind Trevor Gooseby, and he's the only freshman working with the twos right now. You got a guy like Connor Robertson there who's going into his fourth year working with the number 2 offensive line. Nick Brooks, who's been a part of 2 practices already working with the backups. And I think, again, we mentioned this yesterday, Nick Brooks could be a play away from being a significant part of what the Longhorns are doing. The rave reviews about him have been going on since winter workouts. Now we're actually seeing him on the field, and the media has gotten the chance to at least see him for a little bit. Nick Brooks, you don't want to have to rely too much on any backup offensive lineman, but it sounds like he's got a chance to be a really, really good piece down the road for Texas. Love what I'm hearing about the offensive tackle. Going from the O-line to the D-line, number 3, Lance Jackson, the 5-star edge from Texarkana. I read this quote: Colton Vasek better get his butt back on the field as soon as he can, end quote. That's because Lance Jackson is already turning some heads. And look, the Longhorns are loaded off the edge with Colin Simmons back for year 2, with Ethan Burke back for another year, with Trey Moore announcing his return to Austin. Like, big time stuff right there. Also, Justice Terry, recruited as a D-line more so than an edge, but he's only about 260, 265 right now. So if he does play a lot this year, he might be lined up a little bit more on the outside than as an interior guy, because Texas usually likes those 310, 320, 330-pound guys to plug up the inside of the defensive line room. We'll see if Justice Terry is there, but he could be another guy competing for snaps in that edge room this year. So, yeah, I mean, Colton Vasek, I don't mean to take any shots at him. Sounds like the sling is off, but he's still limited right now after offseason shoulder surgery. But Lance Jackson, 6'5", 250, a great athlete, was a really good tight end in high school, too. He's sudden, he can move, and again, stacked room. Texas and this coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for the amount of depth they've accumulated at one of the most premium positions on the field. Lance Jackson, I don't know if you could predict him to have a Colin Simmons type of impact in year 1, but he keeps playing the way he apparently has played through this week. He might be tough to keep on the sideline. And last but not least, the quarterback, KJ Lacey. Insider report said everything Lacey did on day 1 was quick and smooth. Quote, he didn't look like a true freshman early enrollee on the practice field for the first time, end quotes. He's got a live arm. That's what another insider said a couple of days ago. The ball flies out of his hands. Basically all good things in regards to KJ Lacey's first collegiate practice at the University of Texas. He's a third-string quarterback. We hope we don't see a lot of KJ Lacey outside of mop-up duty and some blowouts, maybe in the 3 non-Ohio State non-conference games that the Horns will play in September. But, injury history with Texas at quarterback. I mean, hopefully Arch Manning stays healthy, but if something happens to him, then KJ Lacey could be one play away from being Texas's quarterback. You like hearing that this doesn't look like it's too big for him. Now, Texas was in shells. First day of practice, very different than what an actual game is going to look like. But again, live arm, the ball flies out of his hands, quick, smooth, didn't look like a freshman. Those are, needless to say, great things to hear about anybody, again, being a part of a college practice for the very first time. So there's your 4 right there. The number 1 recruiting class in the country. You're already seeing some guys make an early impact. Cade Phillips, Nick Brooks, Lance Jackson, KJ Lacey. Keep an eye out on all 4 of those dudes as we progress here for March and into April as well. All right, one segment to go on today's edition of Locked On Longhorns. ESPN released its way too early college football top 25 for next season. Where do the Longhorns land? And what concerns do the folks at the Four Letter Network have about Texas? That's next, right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a shout out to our friends at Nissan. We're all about the stats because the numbers do not lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, those numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus all of the gear, wherever you need to go. Powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance you need to handle highways and back roads and everything in between. Room for up to 8 people as well. So it's built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or pulling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. All right, ESPN released its way too early college football top 25. And look, I'm not going to go 1 through 25 here. That's boring. You can look that up on your own. But ESPN did give strengths and weaknesses for each of the teams in their top 25. And you don't have to go too far down this list to find the Texas Longhorns. Number 1 is the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Of course, the Longhorns' first opponent on August 30th. Can't wait for that one. The Horns need some revenge after what went down in Arlington a couple of months ago. But Texas right behind them at number 2. And I'm curious, when the AP preseason poll comes out in the middle of August, will we get Ohio State number 1 and Texas number 2? I don't know how often we've had 1v2 in the first game of a college football season. By the way, it's going to be a big noon kickoff, so it will be one of the very first kickoffs for next year. But, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun regardless. So ESPN has Texas number 2. Here's the strength why the Longhorns are ranked as highly as they are. Impact defenders. Quote, the Longhorns lose star power on the back end with Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba gone. But between edge rushers Colin Simmons and Trey Moore, linebackers Anthony Hill and Leon Galafau, and safety Michael Taft, defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski will disrupt offenses while new players fit into place, end quote. I agree. I mean, this defense was elite last year, one of the best in college football all season long, and it was pretty damn consistent as well. The offense sputtered at times. Obviously, the red zone was a problem. The run game wasn't as consistent as we wanted. Quinn Ewers was up and down. Felt like the defense carried the load more often than not in the 2024 season. I think they're going to have to do the same this coming year. Now, I feel great about Arch Manning. Super excited about his potential. But Texas is replacing a lot more on the offensive side of the football. We're talking about 4 offensive linemen. We're talking about all of the top receivers. We're talking about your number 1 tight end, Jaden Blue, the guy who scored both of your touchdowns in that college football playoff semifinal. Those dudes are all gone. So it may take the offense a little bit of time to get their sea legs under them, which means this defense, especially in Columbus at the shoe, is going to have to carry the load early on. Yes, you're losing some key pieces, right? Jahdae Barron, Andrew Makuba, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, just to name a few. But you have so much returning talent and some elite recruits coming in that I don't expect any sort of major drop-off from PK's side of the football, even though, again, some coaches are gone and players as well. I think that defense is going to be salty, and I think they give us a pretty good encore this year. What about the weakness? Growing pains. Quote, Steve Sarkisian centered his Texas rebuild around the need for big humans, and the Longhorns' offensive and defensive lines were strength during their past 2 playoff runs. Both will see wholesale makeovers this year, with 1 full-time starter returning on the O-line and just 2 scholarship interior defensive linemen coming back. There's a lot of talent, of course, but not much time for the newcomers to grow up, with a road trip to Ohio State kicking off the season and the SEC schedule awaiting, end quote. Yeah, kind of goes in line with what we just talked about. 4 new offensive linemen. You got Gooseby, who's played. You got Cole Hudson, who's played. I think you feel okay about those two, plus DJ Campbell, your one returning starter. But what are you going to get from Neto Umeozulu at left guard, if he is your starting left guard? And what are you going to get from the redshirt freshman Brandon Baker at right tackle, assuming he is your right tackle? Now, Andre Kojo has been getting some first-team reps early in the spring at that right tackle spot. So who's going to win that job? What are you going to get from them? Not going to be easy to replace a Joe Moore Award finalist offensive line from a year ago. And then, going from Texas got kind of lucky, and they earned this luck. They recruited these guys. They developed these guys. But to be able to go from Tavontre Sweat and Byron Murphy to Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, huge. Not much of a drop-off at all. The interior of your defensive line this year, I don't know if you could say the same. Texas brought in 3 transfers with Travis Shaw and Cole Brevard and Hero Canoe. But how good are those guys going to be? They haven't played at a place like the University of Texas. We'll wait and see on that. But you've got to win in the trenches in this conference. And, of course, when you're playing a team as good as Ohio State to open up the year, if Texas isn't buttoned up and ready to roll on the lines of scrimmage, then they're not going to get where they got in 2023 and 2024. We hope they get further. We hope they win 2 more games. They won't get to the college football playoff semi if the O-line is struggling protecting Arch Manning and struggling in the run game, and if this defensive line is a little Swiss cheesy up the middle, could cause some issues for Texas. So there you go. I agree with Texas being number 2, by the way, and I agree with the strengths and weaknesses. It's an elite defense with tons of talent, but the trenches, the growing pains, can you get over them quickly? That will be very important to Texas's college football playoff chances when we get to the fall. And it's very important that you watch today's show. Thank y'all so much. And thank you for listening as well. If you're tuned in podcast form, thanks for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. Make sure you check out the Locked On College Basketball Show with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. The tournament resumes tonight. Be the most informed college basketball fan throughout all of the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. More Texas football tomorrow. We'll preview Texas women's basketball Sweet 16 game. We'll talk some Texas baseball as well. So much happening on the 40 acres this weekend. And for all times, we got you covered right here on Locked On Longhorns. Again, appreciate y'all tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon on Locked On Longhorns.